PLRB presents insightful presentations, each just 15 minutes.
Welcome to PLRB Presents. I'm Tim Pena, Past Claims Conference Committee Chair and the longtime host of this program. Today's first presentation will be Fitness, Wearables, and Trucking, Transforming More Than Waistlines, and it will be presented by Lars Daniel of Envista Forensics. Lars is the practice leader of the Digital Forensics Division at Envista Forensics. Mr. Daniel is co-author of the books Digital Forensics for Legal Professionals, Understanding Digital Evidence from the Warrant to the Courtroom, and Digital Forensics Trial Graphics, Educating the Jury Through Effective Use of Visuals. Join me in welcoming Lars Daniel to the stage.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Fitness, wearables, and trucking. It may sound like an odd topic, but you must understand that today, yes, you have your phones and you have your computers, which are capturing a tremendous amount of data, but you yourself are becoming digital evidence. Your location is being tracked and your very biometric information is being stored on devices that can and is being used as evidence. So where does it begin? Digital forensics has necessary aspects to it that require data to be forensically authenticated, right? We have to be able to collect data in such a way that we can ensure that when we take it to court, you're good. You're safe with that data. Digital forensics plays a critical role in that particular aspect for any type of information that you're talking about, and especially now with this biometric data. So we can collect it, we can get that, we can provide expertise within our discipline, but that data then needs to be utilized by other experts in many occasions. I'm going to show you an example of that in just a moment. But how has all this data and all this information arisen? Where has all this come from? Well, we love data about ourselves. We love information that helps us to have better sleep, to have better workout performance, anything that will allow us to better our lives. And these devices really are quite good and capable at doing that. And that's part of what's called the quantified self-movement, the self-tracking, the measurement, the quantification of all aspects of our daily lives. Literally, these devices can show you your entire day, your stress levels, and more as you go throughout. So you can see when you had stressful periods, perhaps in a meeting or a speaking engagement where your heart rate spikes and comes back down. You can see when you were restful in peace, when you were perhaps, eating Cheetos and watching Netflix, anything like that. So you can see your day on a graph. Well, that evidence is very powerful, and we're going to see that in a moment in some case examples. But first, we are becoming a conduit. What you see here is a sample from one of my experts' reports explaining how, in a litigation matter, data was recovered from a fitness wearable device, in this case, an Apple Health data from a phone that was connected to a watch. So we can pull that data, and we can provide that data in a way that another expert can digest and use, but we can't testify to the authenticity of heart rate data, what it means. We can say that it was accurate from that device and the accuracy of that device with some journals and literature related to the technology itself. But who's going to testify about the heart rate data, right? That needs to be another expert. So this is true in many different fields. This could be recovering data related to compliance with the CPAP machine. We'll see in a moment for a human factors expert who's going to talk about drowsiness, or if that driver was capable at that time to operate a device or a vehicle appropriately, okay? So all that connects together. So that's one such example where we're providing that to a doctor. Now understand that the market for this wearable technology is expanding rapidly, and it doesn't have to be a dedicated fitness wearable. So in 2024, 220 million smartwatch users, most of those in the United States, especially when it comes to the most popular ones, which is like the Apple Watch. We're going to talk about that specifically with the accuracy of that data here in a moment. So you have these incredible reach, the incredible broadening of this technology being used not only by more people, but in more ways and collecting more types of data. The advancement in the technology allow for more and more biometric data in different types to be collected, which will be used as evidence. The most popular devices are recording things like heart rate, sleep tracking, and sleep monitoring, but there are even devices now that you can breathe into that will record and give you information about your dietary, particular foods, and other such information like that. So how does it do this? So for many months, I've been wearing a Whoop device, a Garmin device, an Oura Ring, and I have my examiners wearing other devices too, so we can gather a tremendous amount of data to collect and test and verify them against each other. This Whoop device, like you see right here, is really designed for athletes who want the most precise data that they can get, an extensive amount of data collection, and ultimately be able to determine, am I able to train today? Should I train or not? So it's recording your heart rate, so your heart rate over time. That's with 3 lights that it shines through your skin, those green lights. It also has a red light that tracks heart rate variability. Now, what is heart rate variability? Quickly, I am certified as a trainer and an elite trainer and some other stuff, so I can talk about the human performance, not at a cardiologist level, but how we understand this and use this in the fitness field. When you're talking about heart rate variability, in general, you want a broader heart rate variability, a higher high and a lower low, and you want it to be able to move in that broad category. The higher the variability, on average, the more fit, the more capable you are even that day. So you see day by day capability and performance for a person, all right? So that's what we're looking at there. And it's even recording your blood oxygen saturation. Now, when you think about sleep apnea, other instances like that, blood oxygen saturation is a critical piece of data for that. So it's tracking all that. And this data is how this looks. It can be recovered from devices. So you can see an entire month's performance from my account. You can see daily performance. You can see my daily strain and all that data in a Whoop, right? That's what the data actually looks like. And I have 12 months of data that could be collected by a forensics expert in type of case. Think your personal injury cases and the rest, how valuable that data could be. You also see a Garmin device that I've been wearing for years. Literally from 2018 to present, you can see every workout I've done, my location activity, you can see my sleep and the stages of sleep and more. All through that for that many years. So if you're thinking about somebody attempting to do a lifestyle analysis, saying somebody, they worked out all this time and this accident has happened, they can't do the things they love anymore. Well, if that looks unchanged, that's potential evidence that maybe we should question or at least look into that data more to validate that story or that claim. Here's an example of what that would look like on a particular day. So this was me speaking at 2 conferences and going coast to coast twice in the same period of about 3.5 days. This is in Vegas when I took this, a few moments before a speaking engagement to collect this data. And what you see here is my metrics for myself coming from an Oura Ring and a Whoop device. What I want you to see primarily is you see that recovery of 11%? Been working too hard, not sleeping enough. That's the day I spoke, flew in and spoke the next day, that 11%. What you see here is a dramatic drop based upon what's happening the days prior leading up to an event that I'm doing. Now that's a speaking engagement, but what if this is events leading up to a surgery, events leading up to operating a motor vehicle? This type of information is on plaintiff attorneys' minds. I know of plaintiff attorneys who literally, a client walks in the door, they take that personal injury case, they immediately buy them an Oura Ring, they put that on them to record biometric data that they can later use in mediation to show disruptances in sleep, to show perhaps that their workouts aren't that great or whatever, and they're using that even if they have no prior data, okay? So that's being recorded, and these devices are validating each other. So the data from them are accurate enough and very close together that you're seeing a high level of accuracy for that information. So how reliable is the data? That's obviously a critical element and something we have to look at when we're talking about forensic data of any kind. Well, there's independent peer-reviewed studies that show that heart rate and heart rate variability, highly accurate, and this is years ago. 2 years, and 2 years in technology is like dog years. It's like 14, right? It's a long time for technology to advance. We have a 99 and a 99.7% accuracy in heart rate and heart rate variability. That's very, very good. And they've gotten better since then, okay? These devices keep getting better. And even if you have the same device a year later, it will be better because the algorithms get better as they push new software updates to that device, okay? So you don't even have to buy a new device for that to get better. Also, when you're talking about sleep, this is a critical element when we're thinking about trucking accident cases, drowsy driving or claims of that. This is the Quantified Scientist on YouTube. Highly recommend. He produces some incredible content. But he's seeing how accurate different devices are at tracking sleep as compared to an FDA-approved device you wear on your head that brain maps you basically when you sleep. So you see, the higher it goes to the top right, the better it is. Now, those are 30-some different devices. there's your Apple Watch. What do you think is the most popular wearable out there that tracks fitness? It is the Apple Watch. Many of you are wearing an Apple Watch in this room right now. That is a wealth of information. We'll talk about how we get that data in just a moment. What about determining time of impact? Well, this is me in the hospital last year sometime. While I'm there, in the waiting room, waiting to get seen, young lady's also in there who's been in a car accident. She's fine, but she didn't click the cancel to notify, so mom and dad show up, uncle shows up, best friends show up, everyone on her favorites list show up because her watch has reported she's been in an accident. After I got over the fact that she has so many people who love her and would show up to the hospital and I'm there by myself, some people came, don't get me wrong. It was just incredible to see how quickly that happened. So I began to think about, like, how could you determine point of impact with that data? Because it's recording that information, right? And how's it doing it? It's doing it because there's accelerometers. It's measuring acceleration front to back, side to side, up and down. Gyroscopes in those devices that are measuring the how it's turning, right? As it's moving and orbiting in space. And then it has heart rate sensors to track that too. Now, this has been tested, and there's a great video you can watch, the Wall Street Journal doing this, where they crash a derby car into another vehicle and then utilize these phones strapped to a dash and then somebody wearing the device, an Apple Watch in this case, to see how you can calculate this back. They crash these cars together, and they're able to see the following. The exact time, 10 seconds after an SOS call happens from the phone automatically, you have 10 seconds to hit cancel or it's going to call. If it calls, you calculate that time back and you can get within seconds. If it doesn't call and you see that cancel from getting that data from the device, you can calculate very close within seconds of impact time. Now, one quick caveat to this, you have to have both the device and a wearable for this to be this accurate. If it's just a phone, it will not be this accurate. And the reason is that it's looking at the distance and the transverse between the phone and the wearable, so the distance they've moved, the gyroscopes, accelerometers in this device versus the one they assume to be on your wrist, and that has high levels of accuracy. Without that, the accuracy is not as high. What about sleep duration and quality? I think this is one of the most critical areas when we're talking about trucking accident cases because of the risks of sleep apnea, right? That is becoming a more prevalent issue in the United States. There's the studies that show that, but it's obviously, if you're familiar with the trucking world, a bigger issue in the trucking industry, okay? And it doesn't even have to do so much with being overweight. In some ways, it also has to do with having a bigger neck. If you have a bigger neck, you can have sleep apnea. Strongman competitors all have CPAP machines, and a lot of bodybuilders because their necks are big, right? Most people's airways stay the same size. The reliability of this data, 2017 to 2015, was shown to be highly accurate, not only for total sleep duration, but the stages of sleep, which would be critical information. Well, here's what you need to think about. People download these applications on their phone, like Sleep Tracker, and they may advertise that they're not meant to diagnose this, but they sure advertise like they can. So you have these apps that people are recording their sleep, and that could be evidence in your next motor carrier case. They're pulling data from these devices. All these different applications like CPAP.com recommend Sleep++ for this. But what about the actual devices themselves? What about the CPAP machine you connect to your phone through an application? Well, that's recording your compliance, whether you're using it or not. And if you're not using it, it's sending you emails and text messages reminding you to use it. It's sending you gamification awards when you use it a certain number of nights in a row. So that's recoverable. Listen to this. Listen to the digital evidence.
With daily access to your therapy data, MyAir lets you track your progress so you can see how well you're doing. If you encounter a problem, say with your mask's seal, it will show you how to fix it. You'll also get emails and texts to encourage and support you along the way.
Emails and texts to encourage and support you in an application that's recording that activity. Think of the use for that for a plaintiff's attorney. That driver gets in an accident, you're trying to claim that it's not distracted driving, that it's drowsy driving at this point, right? You could look at that sleep. Did they use the CPAP? You were prescribed that by a doctor. Have you been using that like you were supposed to be using it? They can actually pull that data and see it. Now, we obviously also, one of the best ways to show just the amount of location data created as well. Strava, the heat maps, this is an application for fitness tracking that you can download on your phone. And I could select you if you have an account and see all your runs, all your routes, all the places you've been with your name and the rest. There's two news stories that really show this well. This is a military base, and that is definitely not a secret CIA base that was disclosed that everyone was able to locate because Strava is recording people running. And the hotter it looks, there's more people running that route. You can click on it and see the people, okay, and the times that they ran. Also occurred at the George Bush Center for Intelligence in Langley, Virginia. But how do we get this data? We get this data using traditional forensic methods. We don't need the wearable device in most of these instances because that data, the watch, is a massive sensor that's recording that data and transmitting it to something that has more storage and processing power, your cell phone. We get that using cell phone forensic technology most of the time. We can record that. We can crack passcodes like the government. We can get deleted data, you name it, from cell phones. It's also from your online accounts or from a computer if you sync it there. So it's all recoverable. Look at a quick case example and then we're going to close this out. This is a case I consulted on with a cyclist who's going down a hill and hits a truck, all right? When he hits that truck, serious brain damage. It was a very damaging case in that sense, that brain shearing, severe damage to the gentleman. Now, their theory of the case on the plaintiff's side is the truck just pulled out. There's no way it could stop. Interesting situation because this is one of those kind of California stop intersections you can see as far as the eye can go. So it didn't quite make sense. So they asked me to look at these devices, which was a Vector 33S, that watch right there, and the Garmin heart rate monitor, which you all had, okay? Now, that Vector 33S goes on the crankshaft of a bike. That measures your wattage output, how hard you are pedaling. So we can see literally how much energy you're outputting from those pedals. Now, this isn't the actual data, but I'm going to show you examples of it so you can get an idea. These devices are expensive fitness devices that are highly accurate because fitness nerds want very accurate data, and that's how they compete in that world, okay? Here's 3 different devices that Garmin and 2 other ones use for the same thing in a test to show how accurate they are on top of each other for the measuring that wattage output. That's over a 45-minute span. Here's 30-second sprint. You can go even closer to this. You can zoom in very, very close, as in 10 seconds or less, as in the case I'm talking about. Well, in that case, this cyclist is hauling tail as fast as he can go until he hits that truck. Now, in my lay opinion, who's familiar with triathlete enthusiasts who train, he likely saw that the intersection was clear, got aerodynamic over the front of that bike because he is training for time, never looks up and hits that truck. So this was a good outcome for the defense. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.